Welcome to EPG Pathshala Philosophy. I am Satchidanand Mishra, Professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. I am going to explain this module Arthāpatti, the Mīmāṃsā-Nyāya debate, and this is related to logic, course logic 2, and the content writer of this module is Dr. Nirmalya Guha. In Indian philosophical tradition, perception is taken to be the pramana which is accepted by every philosopher. And second comes anumana, inference. Inference is also accepted by many except one, that is Charvak. So in the way there are certain pramanas which are accepted by some philosophers, some schools, and are not accepted by other schools. So in this category falls this pramana Arthāpatti. There are Mīmāṃsakas as well as Vedantins who try to say that Arthāpatti should be given a separate status. It should be taken as a separate kind of pramana. It is not reducible to other pramanas. Therefore, Arthāpatti is a separate kind of pramana. It is a pramana which is giving us a new piece of information, that is a pramana in this context. And Arthāpatti is such a kind of pramana which is not reducible to other pramanas. If it were reducible to other pramanas, it should not be taken as a separate kind of pramana. So this is one point of view, and there is another point of view, and that is of Naiyayikas. And also there are Buddhist philosophers too who could be included in this debate, and they will be here in the side of Naiyayikas, because Naiyayikas do not accept Arthāpatti as a separate pramana. They are willing to say that Arthāpatti is very well reducible to inference. And in the position proposed by Buddhist philosophers, according to them, this Arthāpatti would also be reducible to inference. So here I am going to introduce you this debate between Nyaya and Mīmāṃsā. What is the Nyaya position and what is the Mīmāṃsā position, we will discuss in this module. So first we concentrate what is the nature of Arthāpatti pramana, how Arthāpatti pramana is defined, understood in Mīmāṃsā tradition. So it is said, Drishtaha Shruto va Arthaha Anyatha Nopapadyate Atah Arthantar Kalpana Arthāpatti. So this is the definition found in Shabara Bhasya. And the meaning of this definition is that the thing or the object which is seen or listened to, if not possible in any other way, we postulate something, and that is the process of Arthāpatti. So it is something different from Anuman. However, in case of inference, we do simply the same kind of thing. When we are inferring fire in the mountain, we see fire. We don't see fire in the mountain, but we perceive only smoke coming out of mountain, and we infer that there is a fire in the mountain. And in this case also we can say the smoke which is coming out of mountain is not possible if there were no fire at all. So the smoke is coming out of mountain and it is seen in mountain, and if there were no fire in the mountain, the presence of smoke couldn't be justified, couldn't be there. The smoke wouldn't have been there unless there is fire in the mountain. So in this case, this is the case of inference. Very clearly everybody accepts that this is the case of inference, and we can say that this criteria, this definition which is postulated simply is applicable to inference also. But why do the Mīmāṃsakas say that this inference is a separate kind of pramana and Arthāpatti is something different from this? And there are certain reasons, and certain reasons are there. Those are this, that in case of inference we acquire the knowledge of Vyapti through observation, and in case of Arthāpatti it is not so much necessary to have observation at all. Therefore they try to say that it is not the simple way of inferring, seeing something and inferring something else. So this is not the case at all according to Mīmāṃsakas. Let us take two examples. One example I have taken of inference, and another example let us take of Arthāpatti. So the point, the picture will be clear. So the example of Arthāpatti, and it is very famous example, that Devadatta is seen fat, very fat, but he is not seen eating in the day. So in this case there is a point, Pinoyam Devadatta diva na bhungte. This Devadatta is very fat but doesn't eat in the day. What it postulates on this statement, from this knowledge we conclude, we postulate that Devadatta eats in the nights, because without eating it is not possible to be fat, to be healthy, and Devadatta is healthy and Devadatta is fat. So it is very necessity that Devadatta must be eating at some time, but he is not eating in the day, so he must eat in the night. It is reduced from this argument. So if this reduction is a product of a separate kind of praman, this is the Mīmāṃsā position, and the Nyayikas say no, this should not be taken as a case of Arthāpatti, but it is not case of postulation, but it is a case of inference. Let us take another example also, and this is also a very famous example in Mīmāṃsā tradition. Suppose somebody went to the home of Devadatta and not seeing Devadatta at home. What he concludes? He asks some person whether there is a Devadatta in the house, and he came to know from the answer given by someone that no, Devadatta is not at home. So he concludes, okay, it means Devadatta is out of house, he is not at home, and he will be somewhere, he will be out in the market or somewhere. So what is there here? What is happening? You told that Devadatta is not at home, but the listener concludes that Devadatta is Devadatta is somewhere else, in the market and out of the home. So this understanding of out of home is a product of Arthāpatti Pramāṇa. This is the Mīmāṃsā position. Why this is a Mīmāṃsā position? Why this is Arthāpatti? Because the point is that it cannot be reduced to inference. Because when you are inferring, there are certain things must be there in order to infer. Two are basic necessities. One is Vyapti and second is Pakshadharmata. So here Hetu is, what is the Hetu? This is the question would come, that Hetu should be there, and between Sadhya and Hetu there must be Vyapti, and that Hetu must be present in Paksha. So Pakshadharmata is required, Vyapti is required, and Hetu should be there in clear form. So in this case, what is the Hetu? This would be very difficult to answer. What is the Hetu you are inferring? Because you are told that Devadatta is not at home, and Devadatta is not at home, it you cannot reduce from this that Devadatta is out of the home, because you have to add another piece of information to it, because there are possibilities that if Devadatta is not at home, he might have died, but you infer that he is out. So if he is died, he is dead, then you cannot say that the inference, the conclusion that Devadatta is out of house would not be a proper conclusion. It would not be a good conclusion, because it is not verifiable, it is not true to, it is not corresponding to the facts. So in this case, this would not be a case of pramana at all if this were the case. But in this case, when you are saying that Devadatta is not at home, one is concluding that Devadatta is out of the house. So this conclusion can be drawn only if there is another piece of information that Devadatta is alive. So if Devadatta is alive and he is not at home, then it is good to conclude, we have ground to conclude that Devadatta is out of the house. So this would be the case of Arthāpatti, and it cannot be reducible to perception, and there is no problem. It is very well understood that it cannot be reduced to perception. Whether it can be reduced to inference, this is the basic problem, the basic issue between Mīmāṃsā and Nyāya. So Naiyayikas are of this opinion that it can be understood in the form of inference, and actually there are two kinds of Arthāpattis. One Arthāpatti is known as Drishtarthāpatti and another is known as Shrutarthāpatti. And these two examples which I gave you, first one, Pinoyam Devadatta Diva na bhungte, Devadatta is fat but he doesn't eat in the day. This is the case of Drishtarthanupapatti, because we observe very clearly, we see very clearly that Devadatta is fat, and we also observe that Devadatta is not eating in the day. So this is Drishtarthāpatti. And what is Shrutarthāpatti? This is the case of Shruta Arthāpatti, when you are told that no, Devadatta is not at home. So you have not observed this fact whether Devadatta is not, whether Devadatta is at home or not. But you are told that Devadatta is not at home. So this information is coming through words, shabdas, the shabda praman. So this, when this information is coming from shabda praman, it is taken to be the case of Shruta Arthāpatti, because it is listened to, it is heard, and from that ground you are inferring. So in Anuman there is Anumeya, there is something Anumeya, and there is a Hetu through which you infer. Clearly Hetu is present there. And here in these two cases we can observe very clearly that we have to formulate what is Hetu. Simply you cannot say that this is Hetu. Like the example we observe when we infer fire in the mountain, Parvataha Vanyaman Dhumat, the mountain is fiery because of smoke. So in this case smoke is taken there as Hetu. But here if you take these two examples, one example is that Devadatta Diva na bhungte. This is abhojan, not eating. Not eating is not capable of proving that Devadatta eats in the night. And second example, not being at home is not able to prove the existence of Devadatta out of the house. So what is uttered as Hetu, that is not able to prove the existence of Sadhya, and what is able to prove the existence of Sadhya, that is not propounded as Hetu. So it would not be possible here to take these examples, to accommodate these examples in case of inference, because in inference there is Hetu clearly understood, and sadhya is also very clearly mentioned, and in these cases it is not happening at all. So how to conclude that this is a case of inference or this is the case of Arthāpatti? So Mīmāṃsakas are saying that this is the case of Arthāpatti, because if you are taking it as a case of Anuman, it would not be possible to locate it, because there is a one point, that one thing is needed, that is Pakshadharmata. Pakshadharmata jnana is required, Pakshadharmata, presence of hetu in Paksha is required, site locatedness you can say. So this is required, presence of hetu in Paksha. In simple way we can understand, when Pakshadharmata is said, what is the meaning of Pakshadharmata is presence of hetu in Paksha. So what is propounded as hetu? Here it is propounded, it is said that he doesn't eat in the day. So it is not capable, not eating in the day is not able to prove the eating in the night, unless it is supported by a further argument, a further fact that he is fat in spite of not eating in the day. So if you take all these together, then you can say that now it is possible. But there would be another difficulty. Why shouldn't we accept that this whole set is taken to be hetu, and on that ground we can infer sadhya? So there is another difficulty, because there is a need of vyapti between sadhya and hetu. It is never observed everywhere. It is never observed everywhere. The distinction can be classified, understood clearly in case of inference in the fire, where we infer fire in the mountain on the basis of smoke. We have observed many times that, see, there are certain cases where smoke is present and fire is also present. But in this case you won't be able to pick out any example where there is the person who is not eating in the day but eating in the night and fat. So such kind of any observation is not possible anywhere, because you have observed that because eating, when one is eating, he is getting healthier, he is getting fatty, but when he is not eating in the day but eating in the night and getting fat, it is a peculiar thing. It is never observed before. So this is the clear distinction between the case of inference and Arthāpatti. Because in Arthāpatti, between sadhya and hetu, the presence of sadhya and hetu together is absent. It is not observed at all. It would not be proper to say that it is absent completely, but it is not observed at all. But in case of inference, the presence of hetu and sadhya together is observed clearly. So this is very simple distinction between Arthāpatti and inference. So we cannot include Arthāpatti into inference, and we should grant Arthāpatti a separate status, and we should accept that Arthāpatti is a separate kind of a pramana. So let us take another example also, what we have proposed just now, that when we see that Devadatta is not at home, so we conclude that Devadatta is out of the house. So here, what is the conclusion? What is to be proved here? What we prove through this reasoning? We prove that Devadatta is not at home, but it is out of the home, out of his home. So presence out of the house is to be proved. This is the sadhya bahirvrittitva, presence outside of the home. This is the sadhya. And what you will propose as hetu? You will propose as hetu that not being at home in spite of being alive. But whether have we observed it somewhere? We have not observed it somewhere. We have observed simply the existence of presence of somebody is alive and somebody is existent, but we have not observed it clearly in this form. So there will be no vyapti grahana, no ascertainment of vyapti, universal concomitance. So if there is no universal concomitance is possible, ascertainment of universal concomitance is possible, then how could we say that this is a case of inference? But the Naiyayikas say that actually this is a case of inference, and their position is something different, and the position position they take that we can reduce very clearly that this is the case of inference. Gangesha gives one very familiar example to understand the case of inference, and the example is that he postulates that we have we have observed that if there is a dance, that dance either be on the hill or at somewhere else, be a hill or a non-hill, anything can be the locus of the dance of peacock. So the dance of peacock must have a locus. This is the necessity. What is the locus? If it is known that this is not the locus, it is concluded that another one is the locus of that dance. So if there is this proposition that the peacock's dance is not occurring on a non-hill, therefore we conclude that peacock is dancing on hill. Because what is happening here, this is very simply can be understood in the same way as we discussed the case of Arthāpatti. In Arthāpatti, it is happening, all those examples could be accommodated in the same form, they can be formulated in the same form, and here it is said that there is a vyapti actually. And in this case, if something is negated, then in the same process another what is not negated, that is coming to the conclusion. So if it is said that Devadatta is not eating at all, Devadatta is not eating at all, then it is not possible to be fat. So if he is getting fat and not eating in the day, it makes a sound ground that the person Devadatta would be eating in the night. So this is the clear case example of inferential process. So according to Naiyayikas, all this can be accommodated in the scenario of inference, and here generally when we say that sadhya and hetu, those should be known together, related, because there is a need of a knowledge of sahacharya niyam, being present together. So here in the same form, however, it is not conceived, they are not observed, but this is very clearly understandable that there is actually vyapti, and this vyapti is understood between that sadhya being alive and either being at home or being out of the house, being fat, between being fat and eating in the night or in the day. So if one part is negated, another part is asserted. This is the case of Arthāpatti, what you consider, what the Mīmāṃsakas consider to be the case of another pramāṇa. But the Naiyayikas say that it is not the case that Arthāpatti cannot be taken to be included in inference. There is kevala vyatireki, in which this Arthāpatti can be understood, because it is not simply observed, but Arthāpatti is such case where it is also not observed clearly that if the thing is there and suppose A is hetu and B is sadhya, so it is not observed there that if A is there, B is always there, but opposite to it is observed. So opposite to it is observed. On that ground we can infer, we can say that actually this is a case of inference, because in inference we can include this Arthāpatti type of praman also without without postulating that Arthāpatti is a separate kind of pramana. So the Naiyayikas are of this opinion that we need not accept Arthāpatti is a separate kind of pramana. To conclude, in this chapter we have observed that there are certain issues, certain dialogues between Mīmāṃsā and Nyāya. Mīmāṃsakas are of this opinion that Arthāpatti should be taken to be a separate kind of pramana, and Naiyayikas say though there is no need of accepting that this is a separate epistemic instrument, this is not a separate praman. So when we come to Gangesh, till Gangesh it is very clear that they are postulating this, they are propounding this Nyaya view that Arthāpatti is not a separate kind of praman. But it is very interesting to note that in Nyaya also there was a philosopher, Raghunatha Shiromani, who tried to defend the Mīmāṃsā position, and he said that Arthāpatti should be accepted as a separate kind of praman. However, there is one point, his arguments are something different. He is not saying that Arthāpatti cannot be reduced to Anuman, but his point is that however it is possible that you can reduce Arthāpatti to Anuman, but whether ye praman is a different kind of praman, it is not the ground that if it is reducible or not. It can serve one ground, but there is another ground, and that is more important to note, that if you are having same kind of feeling when you are inferring and when you are knowing something through Arthāpatti praman, and certainly there are not the same kinds of feelings. When you infer, you know that aham vannhim anuminomi, there is such kind of feeling, and when there is Arthāpatti, we don't have such kind of feeling, but this is called anuvyavasaya. So we don't have such kind of anuvyavasaya that aham anuminomi, rather there is a separate kind of anuvyavasaya, that is aham arthāpayami, I postulate it, such kind of feeling is there. So we should depend upon that feeling and accept that Arthāpatti is a separate kind of praman, as Raghunatha Shiromani says. But the accepted view is that Arthāpatti should not be taken as a separate praman. This is the Naiyayikas accepted view, and Raghunath could not find much followers who support his position that Arthāpatti is a separate kind of praman. You may consult the Learn More section on the chapter on this module, and also the e-text. Thank you very much.